Boom, people. We're on the main camera here. We're in studio, and being in studio with people in the backdrop is almost more intimidating than having 25,000 people behind a computer.
You mean when it's like Tucker and Don Jr. and Dan Bongino and a whole bunch of other interesting people?
Kind of wild. We're sitting here. For anybody who I don't even know, which camera do I look into here? I'm going to look into, Robert, I'm going to look at you.
Yeah.
We just had Bongino, Don Jr., Tucker.
Yeah, you get to talk with all of them.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You get your photo with Tucker?
I did. I got it with all three. Bongino,
Tucker's
I'll post it later.
by the way. For those people that haven't seen him behind the scenes, if you get behind the scenes, what you see is somebody who's just natural in social settings.
He
could be an easy politician. He could raise money with ease. He could lobby with ease. I think he has no interest in doing it, but he would make a perfect one.
It's amazing. You meet people in real life, and then you realize they're not the demonic, satanic creatures the media made them out to be. I was looking for Tucker's
always been
horns.
very nice, very sociable, very friendly. I mean, I met him the first time in 2016 in February at the Nevada caucuses, and you could tell Eric was more. He was less the social animal. He was more the sort of regular guy that but didn't feel at ease. Don Jr. walked out in a huge crowd, shaking hands, talking to people. He had that natural social skill, communicative skill from the get-go. It was very interesting to hear Tucker talk about how the person he respected the most in all of Trump world is Don Jr., that he's the smartest, that he's the one who understands the populist movement, the zeitgeist of the conservative, of the Trumpian movement, of MAGA, that he's the most connected to it. And I think, and Bongino was very nice, almost shy. So it's always interesting when you see these people behind the scenes, because most people you meet over here in the convention, like the politicians and the lobbyists, you meet some of the most shallow, hollow human beings on the planet. The delegates are fantastic. They're nice. They're ordinary people. They're accessible. They're friendly. They're true Americana. They're proud to buy the glitchy stuff that the media hates that they like. The gold Trump plate, the gold Trump hat, the gold Trump shoes, whatever it is. They love it because they're very Americana. But a lot of the politician class, the lobbying class, they're almost all scuzzbags. So it's always nice when you meet people like Tucker, like Don Jr., like Dan Bongino, who are very accessible, very friendly, very ordinary, very everyday, real people, that they are who they appear to be, rather than all the politicians, 90% of whom are as shallow and as hollow as you get.
We were talking about it, I think it was last night on Tim Pool, where behind closed doors, Biden is alleged to be far different than he is nice grandpa old type guy in front of the camera.
Ask yourself, what kind of person's dogs go around and bite lots of people?
Two of them. Someone made a joke that he trained his dogs to bite. The reality is you don't train a dog to bite. They bite when they're either abused or worse or neglected. Yeah. And he had two of them. Both of those dogs have met I suspect, the same fate as Chrissy Nome. But no, Bongino is amazing to meet in person. Mm-hmm. Tall, chiseled. His physical appearance is amazing, but nice and like what you'd think he would be, and not a phony. Don Jr., I don't remember who I was talking about with this. They were saying the curse of the Trump family is that they're too normal. Don Jr. is he's a good dad. He's into regular stuff like hunting, fishing.
Yes.
Compare that to...
And he likes ordinary people. Most of the politicians in the political class and the big money people and the Hollywood crowd, anybody that's got celebrity power or money, as a general rule, doesn't like ordinary people. Sees them with contempt, sees them with dislike, thinks they are above them, doesn't want to be touched by them, doesn't want to have to interact with them. Don Jr. is just the opposite. And Tucker's just the opposite. And Bongino's just the sincere like of people, enjoyment of people, respect of people, make themselves more available and accessible than they have to be or than they need to be. And that's, like Trump Sr., like President Trump in the same way, like J.D. Vance in the same way.
Robert, first of all, I'm still replaying the moment. I'm still rewatching that clip of Trump with his fist to the air saying fight. And you see him not as a politician. You see him not as a caricature, as a flipping human with emotion and with true passion, where this guy could be golfing now and is instead, I don't want to say dodging bullets because that would imply intent. He's evading bullets.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to Don and this is a family that could be doing anything else except for this and are now sacrificing themselves for this country. The fallout of the shooting, the shootout. There's some news breaking that apparently this kid was on the roof of the very same building where they were staging, the snipers were staging or whatever?
Yeah, there was Secret Service inside the building that they had previously staged being on top of that building, including having a sniper crew just the day before.
So stop there. Why would they not have had the sniper crew on that roof?
Oh, well, the DEI head of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion honoree, head of the Secret Service, explained that's because it was a sloping roof. And sloping roofs are a labor risk. That's an OSHA violation. You can't have anybody on a sloping roof. So that's why they didn't have anybody on there. Of course, the actual sniper crew, counter sniper crew,
on a sloping roof.
We're also on a sloping roof.
No.
And people pointed out the White House has a sloping roof where there are people on a regular basis.
Robert, it's so stupid. It defies logic where even the explanation, you don't foresee the obvious. We had commented, like, even, I won't say she's a DEI, I'll just say she's a corrupt hack that wanted this to happen, but ending differently. We commented on it, how the sniper who took him out, on such an uneven surface that his rifle bounced up after he took the shot. When did she make that statement?
Today.
I missed it. I just saw the memes on the internet.
I thought first that maybe this is some, meme or
misattribution.
misinterpretation. Oh, no, it's exactly what she said. Seen her right on video saying it. And I think what it represents and reflects is this was an inside job. I mean, this was an inside. It would explain, as other people have pointed out, it would explain the sound. It would explain the shooting. It would explain what the counter sniper was confused by, that somebody was inside that building taking the shots at President Trump. And that's why those first two shots were right on target. I mean, literally right on target. Right on within a quarter inch on target.
Let me pause you here. You mean someone inside the building and the patsy on the roof is not the one who took the shots?
Exactly. That someone inside that building took those shots, and the patsy was the person on the roof. And that would explain the locate, and it'll explain why they're letting him do what he's doing. It also came out they saw him 30 minutes before.
Yeah.
So they knew it. In fact, they saw him looking at them through his own scope. They did nothing at all the entire time that he was going up there. Did nothing the entire time he was up there. Did nothing the entire time, even after he's pulling the trigger, until he appears to have been what he looked like to me. I mean, his profile is the profile of a patsy. He's not the profile of an assassin. He's the profile of a patsy.
I need to find the video. I won't be able to find it now, but there is a video where you from below watching him on the roof, and there's a woman saying, "Crooks, what are you doing up there? Crooks, come down." You can never know if the audio is legit, authentic audio. But I'm thinking, like, okay, like, Steelman this. Your theory now, or not your theory, but the hush-hush conspiracy next
the
level
alternative narrative
would be that someone, a professional, took the shot at the same time, then they take out that guy.
Yep. It would also explain that the trajectory of the bullet appeared to be from a lower angle than where he was
coming
located.
down on an angle. I was watching that video where this woman who sounded like the kid's mother or someone who knew the kid, "Crooks, what are you doing up there?" Assuming the audio is legit. And like then I'm thinking, okay, this kid's at a rally. He knows his dad's got a gun in the back of the car. He sees his moment of opportunity to literally stop Hitler. And then he gets up on the roof. And even if that's the Steelman, he saw an opportunity that it took however many minutes for anyone to do anything. Then I say, maybe the sniper on the other roof thought it was one of their own, who was the sniper now stationed on that roof. Even still, you can't see through the scope. The kid didn't look like any sort of intelligence asset. The woman, what's her name? The head of the Secret Service. I forget her name.
Yeah.
She has to resign. Or she
won't, yeah. And maybe because she was doing her job, which was to make sure Trump was assassinated right before the convention, before he could be legally nominated, before the ballot would be legally obligated to put him on there, before his vice president had been chosen, before his vice president would be his replacement if elected. I mean, I think the timing can't be coincidental at this point, especially once we saw J.D. Vance was the pick. It meant that Trump had not cut any deal with him at all. And in fact, you look at what he does, not only do you see him in live time say, "Fight, fight, fight," you see him immediately thereafter come here to the convention. And what does he do? What does he leak out that morning? And then today got published a phone call and meeting with Robert Francis Kennedy Jr. And what is he talking about? He's talking about issues that go right to deep state corruption, the vaccine system, the vaccine schedule, how complicit our governments are, how complicit Big Pharma is in the massive harm being delivered on people through children. And like people were thinking, that this was leaked by somebody that was hostile to Trump. No, it's a very favorable leak to Trump. It's, hey, Trump sounds accessible. He sounds cordial. He sounds friendly. He sounds committed on the issue. He's showing Kennedy, I understand this issue as well as you understand this issue. Says they're injecting things that are meant for horses with little 10-month-old babies. He's visualizing it brilliantly. It's very rhetorically effective. But let's say you're Trump and you don't want to take responsibility right now for that position. You want the benefit of that position being announced, but you don't want the people being critical of you right now for that position. It also looks more authentic if it's secretly leaked by somebody else.
Well, let me well, first of all, back it up to the beginning. For those who don't know, RFK, it was his son who published the video.
Bobby Kennedy III.
RFK on the phone with Donald Trump after the assassination attempt, where you're
And the
listening.
substance of the video is very favorable to Trump. I mean, that's the first thing. I mean, it's very favorable because it's highlighting his position that he agrees with Robert Kennedy on the vaccine.
Well, he's making jokes about
And he's showing
things
he's
after
totally-
having an attempted assassination on his life.
Exactly. He's totally relaxed that he handled it with great aplomb. And he's even makes the jokes about, the only reason why I'm alive is because I turned my head. And the only reason I turned my head is because this thing was like, he goes,
because
it's
of the
really kind of
immigration."
weird. Joe Biden asked about that, which, by the way, is a hint, right? I mean, what Trump is saying is, why is Joe Biden asking about, hey, why did you turn your head? You know what I mean? I mean, that sounds like you're supposed to be dead. Why did you turn your head? Why did you do that? Because, I mean, it's almost like Trump's hinting at that. But, I'm just talking to Bobby Kennedy. I'm just, See, I mean, this is why it gets a lot of important information out there in a way that sounds more authentic because it's leaked and without him getting any blowback for it. So but it makes him sound very favorable. When I first heard about it, I was like, oh, did Kennedy's camp, have this secret recording of Trump that's very embarrassing to Trump? And then I listened to the video. I'm like, oh no, this is extremely favorable to Trump.
Well, the clip that I found, I thought it surely couldn't be the entire clip because it's like, okay, first of all, people are freaking out as though Trump hasn't said this publicly already. I mean, he said the whole
It's
thing
just
about
he hasn't said in a while the vaccine. There was a lot of people on the vaccine side that wanted to hear this from Trump, but haven't heard it from him. There's no better way to get that out there to the Kennedy camp, the people voting for Kennedy or thinking about voting for Kennedy, than to have a phone conversation with Kennedy leaked, not by Trump, but by Kennedy's camp. That makes him look great on vaccines, makes him look great for how he handled the assassination, for hints to people that Joe Biden knew and was responsible for it. Why is Joe Biden asking him why he moved his head? I mean, that's who asked that question? Who didn't want somebody dead?
Hey, Don, why'd you move your freaking head?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, what I do
and
love...
it's almost a subtle threat from Biden, right? I mean, it's the way Biden operates. Remember the debate where Biden looked at him and said, wait till the next thing's coming, wait till you're going to lose all your money. How does it feel to lose all your money?
Can someone go clip that, wait until the next, there's still more coming, and then this happens. That juxtaposition might be nice.
And the way he says it with a smirk. I mean, again, think of Joe Biden, LBJ but retarded, a street-level thug criminal from the old Midwest, like think corrupt Teamsters boss, not like the honest Teamsters guy yesterday speaking to the Republican National Convention saying how great Trump and Vance are going to be for ordinary working class people. You're talking about the most impactful labor union in America, and their leader is at the Republican National Convention. That hasn't happened. There's been no Teamster backing, any labor backing of any Republican since Richard Nixon and the Teamsters and Jimmy Hoffa backing the Nixon. So you have that sort of honest moment, but here you have this thug, and it gets out there that Trump's saying it was kind of interesting, and then you have Trump making the snide joke. He goes, by the way, he goes, Robert's only because I was looking at the board
about the immigration.
But I didn't tell Biden it was about all the illegals he was letting in the country. That was what the board is about. Just his little hit back. But he sounds accessible. He sounds friendly. He sounds human. He sounds on board on the vaccines. He sounds like he knows exactly what Joe Biden is up to, and he's utterly unintimidated by Joe Biden. And he lets that information leak, and then later in the day picks J.D. Vance, the one person the entire Republican establishment, the entire neocon establishment didn't want picked. I mean, why is Mitch McConnell here yesterday, right? He knows that everybody on the delegate floor hates his guts. He was here because they thought they were going to be replacing Trump.
Well, Mitch McConnell is the one who just got chewed out by Matt Gaetz on the floor today?
Kevin McCarthy, the former Speaker of the House.
But one last thing. It's just before we move on, because we'll shift out naturally. But interesting that we've been talking about this. Trump has to change his tune on the vaccines a little bit, and this is a very interesting way to have that done.
Brilliantly done, by the way.
The idea that it would be leaked and that
RFK would be... it's reaffirmed of leaking by Kennedy saying, golly gee, I'm shocked I didn't know. I feel really bad.
That's where
maybe Kennedy does, but I think if you're in Trump world, you want that leak.
Well, for sure. And if you're in Kennedy world, I couldn't see him
Bobby Kennedy III had never leaked anything like this. Robert Kennedy's never leaked anything like this. So that's why everything about it told me this was actually what Trump wanted to have happen.
Yes, what Trump wanted. My only question would be whether or not RFK would be doing this willingly, or his,
I think
Trump
he
would let it happen.
If Trump's like, look, it'd be great if this got out there, but your people do it, so there's plausible deniability. And at the same time, this is part of you showing me we've got an agreement.
Yeah,
we've got some level of an agreement.
The only
and
issue,
his message to the deep state and the establishment is, I'm now going to bring J.D. Vance in as my successor. I'm going to bring Robert Kennedy into the camp. He also puts out today that he's going to put a libertarian in the cabinet. And the chairwoman of the Libertarian Party has been working on that. Vivek goes around confirming it to all the media. So Trump is doubling down on everything. He understands exactly what the assassination attempt was, who was really behind it, what the reason for it was. And his answer is the way you always respond to threats is you push back. And he's pushed back as aggressive as he could. He's meeting with Robert Kennedy saying, I'm going to challenge vaccines, and he gets that information out there. He puts J.D. Vance as his vice president, the most populist choice he could possibly have. And he puts out there that he's going to put a libertarian in the cabinet. And he leaks that he's probably going to put Robert Kennedy in some role, in a medical role, knowing that's Bill Gates' #1 obsession is that Kennedy not have that whole commission that he got jettisoned in the first term, that not happen. And Trump is suggesting, I'm going to actually make it twice as big as it would have been before.
Robert, it is amazing, and it's the day after Trump calls out for Secret Service for Kennedy and then gets it, and Kennedy says this is
Biden has to
unifying.
fold and immediately get it for him.
Is there
and that could have been the deal. The deal could have been, hey, I'll make sure you get Secret Service protection. That's going to save you tons of money. That's the biggest thing for Kennedy. He's spending tens of millions of dollars on his security because he has so many levels of threats. He gets Secret Service. He can still have his own personal security involved, but they're not having to bear the cost of all of the security. They can work with Secret Service to get it done. And the quid pro quo can be, you let this information out that shows we're aligned on some key issues. And Trump knows the #1 issue that Kennedy's getting votes on the vaccines. And he can take all those votes himself and tell Kennedy, I'll get you a position so that issue gets investigated when I get elected.
Do you think, is there any idea that Kennedy at some point says, okay, well now I'm no longer, I withdraw, I'm no longer running, and I'll work with Trump, or does he stay in as?
I think at this point he stays in, and I think it's still to his benefit to at least be on the ticket everywhere. And I think he'll still campaign on his ideas. But essentially, there's a portion of Kennedy's vote, and in fact, Kennedy could substantially benefit Trump. There's a portion of Kennedy's vote that's a never Trump vote.
Yeah.
And so your ideal scenario, if you're Trump, is you give all those young working class voters an alternative with voting for Kennedy instead of Biden, and you just absorb all the Trump-oriented voters that are on Kennedy's grift. And that's what that leak does. Because he knows the #1 issue for people that are considering both Trump and Kennedy is medical freedom and vaccines. So he's publicly said that. And so now he's saying, hey, actually, if you care about that issue, because he basically does the pitch right through Robert Kennedy's call. That's what was fascinating to me. I was like, there's nothing about this that's necessarily helpful. It's not hurtful to Kennedy, but it's not necessarily helpful to Kennedy.
It's hurtful in that it does display some poor judgment about not disclosing that you're recording a conversation, then not getting authorization.
There's that aspect. But that's kind of relatively minor. Nobody's going to care in the end about the sourcing of it. But in terms of the substance of the communication, it's not necessarily particularly favorable or hostile to Kennedy one way or the other. But if you look at it, he's making to Kennedy the pitch he's going to make to Kennedy's voters. Because remember what he follows up with, hey, yes, I agree. This is crazy what's happening in the vaccine schedule. We need major investigation. I want you involved in that. The next thing he says is, I'm going to win big. Right? He's telling this to a competitor. I'm going to win big. I mean, that's what he's ultimately, that's the pitch to his voters, to Kennedy's voters, is, hey, if you want any of these things done, you've got to vote for me, Trump, because I'm your only chance to get them done. And don't worry, I'm going to have Kennedy involved on the big issues that you really care about. And so it worked at multiple levels. He gets out how creepy Biden's communication was. He gets out that he's totally chill about the assassination attempt. He gets out that he wants to work with Kennedy on the big issues of vaccines. And he gets a message directly to Kennedy's voters in a phone call to Kennedy leaked by Kennedy's campaign that says, by the way, only I can win.
I'm just reading one chat that caught my eye. It said that Vance's wife worked at a law firm that defended Bill Gates. Like, all right, is that the game that we're playing now to discredit? I had a bit of a revelation, Robert. Just going back to the it's not a Lee-hop. I mean, I'm not sure I'm on board yet with a separate shooter under the building. I would think that's an unnecessary next level. Just let the passy take his shot and then take him out.
But the problem, you can't let an idiot shoot. right?
Yeah,
You're
but there's
going
a
to
lot of
depend on
people-
an idiot to take him out.
Well,
You
there- but
put
a
the
lot of
great efforts to take out a president of the United States, and you let some 20-year-old kid who couldn't even make his rifle team at high school.
Yeah, but a lot of people are
Yeah,
saying
rifle team at high
a
school.
lot of people are saying who know at least shooting better than me that at that range that's a pretty easy target in
But
range,
look at
not
how
outdoors.
it was. There were 2 shots right on target.
So
Literally right. I mean, right in the part of the head that you want to hit.
yeah, let's.
Within tiny millisecond.
Well, that's the thing I'm wondering is that graph. There's an image going around the internet, and I retweeted it where it shows the bullets, and they seem to be on the same plane.
It looks
But
exactly
I said
correct.
maybe they stabilize the plane of the bullet and in relation to the body movement just to make it more clear. But my
But the
revelation
end
was
is that photo that looks like, and what it is when other people first thing they pointed out was if it came from the
level.
roof, it should have been a little bit higher.
Yeah, that
Whereas
I
if it
get.
came from it makes perfect sense.
It does,
Here's what
but-
we know. We know the Secret Service was inside that building. They're inside the building.
As the freaking
Why
guy
are
is
the guys
shooting
climbing?
on the roof.
I mean, what are they doing there? I mean, they're lining up. I mean, and the day before, they were using that building as a sniper location.
Okay, compelling, but we're on the same plane just without
It's just
without
these
the.
criminals are nowhere near as competent as the people who killed the Kennedys.
Well, this is my issue. Like, when I discovered that the argument over whether or not they were lacking resources because
Because Joe Biden
Joe
stole 'em?
Biden-
That was perfect, by the way.
Well, that's a
Hey,
good-
we're gonna
that's the
put
best excuse.
Trump's most loyal people. We're going to tell them to take off that Saturday, and they did. We know the most loyal Secret Service people on Trump's regular crew were told to take off that Saturday to give them rotation time. We also know that the Secret Service wanted more people there of a traditional kind, and that the traditional high-end people were moved out to help Jill Biden in Philadelphia. And then the crew that does show up behaves in a very suspicious manner. So and at I just think this was not well done. I mean, as conspiracies go to assassinate a president, I mean, it was well done in the sense they almost killed him. Now, here's what we don't know. Let's say the shot hits Trump. What was supposed to be stage 2? Supposedly, he had detonators on him, and there were bombs at least in the car.
yeah, bomb-making material, whatever
That
that
tells
means.
me they probably had bombs located throughout the place. In other words, this was supposed to be so chaotic that we never would have put together what happened, right? Instead, what happens is maybe supposedly the guy that took out the shooter wasn't in on it. Supposedly he was on 4chan saying he's now been removed from the Secret Service because he disregarded instructions.
Yeah, and I don't know how
took
you
him out.
verify that type of stuff.
If you look at his behavior at the scene,
he looks surprised.
yes, exactly. So that makes you wonder whether he saw or knew something. If Mike Johnson is not the war whore sellout that he appears to be, if he's sincere about an investigation, as Mike Cernovich has pointed out, there'll be a real committee on assassinations investigation into him. I guess Trump's making an appearance again tonight at the convention. That's smart. Remember he did this in 2016.
Well, we might have to go run back over in a few minutes, Robert.
Well, remember the one right before where he was behind that they blew him up in the shadow? That was that great image in 2016. And I mean, it was just, Trump knows how to make an appearance. He knows how to maximize media coverage. What was interesting is yesterday you could tell it was very emotional for him. I mean, you could tell the impact was still there.
What I cannot get over is they're not stupid. I think they might be mentally ill, but if they're not mentally ill, they're evil. The level of trolling a man who was just the object of an assassination attempt, people putting tampons or Kleenex on their ear and saying, "Ooh," people comparing photos saying that his ear just grew back. This is a picture from yesterday. I've never seen the disinformation warfare in overdrive like this, especially on Twitter. Yes. People, the story that he went and played a round of golf ended up not being true. He was at the resort but not golfing. Right. He was out and about, but people are now saying he was playing golf. His ear grew back, but mocking the victim, it's evil. And it's like, let's unify, let's condemn the violence, but also let's make fun of the victim.
What was supposed to happen was a bunch of crazy things happened, some other culprit. I mean, now they're trying to suggest that their plan was to leak that Iran did it.
So what is it? The news of the day for those who haven't listened is allegedly, and I got questions about this, Iran wanted to assassinate Trump, and there were real threats because he had killed Soleimani, the other guy, years ago. Yes. Let's just assume that's even true. Why would they want to do that now? Why would Iran?
There's zero chance that Iran is behind any assassination attempt.
Any whatsoever. This is a pretext.
Fake, but that tells you that this was a deep state plot all the way
through. But
hold on.
But the question that I had is, if Iran comes out and says we're going to assassinate the president, I don't even know what that would look like, how they would do that. Why then would there be any lapse in security and not heightened security. It doesn't make sense even as their own backup explanation.
Exactly. I think they intended to have multiple levels of people there, to have bombs go off,
And then
to have a
confuse
different
it.
suspect blamed for everything. And they were going to do two things. They were going to launch a war against Iran. That was going to take up all the news. And the thought process was Biden could purchase some conservative support by waging now a war against Iran. So now we'd have a war in the Middle East and a war in Ukraine. It would be a rally around the flag. It would be, it's not Biden's fault that Trump is dead. That the Republican convention was going to put someone like Nikki Haley in, saying look at what happened. These are horrible Iranians have killed President Trump. We need someone that's going to stand up to Iran. We need somebody that's going to stand up to these corrupt rogue terror organizations. And the thought process was this would lead to a rally around the flag effect, and we would have a neocon pick and a neoliberal pick for the political establishment. They would have to deal with the risk that people would rush to support Robert Kennedy in the Trump camp. And I think Trump recognized that Kennedy can provide some degree of life insurance there, but that would be their only risk. And I was curious who they were going to blame as the culprit. We're going to make Trump the culprit, but Iran makes perfect sense.
It's an amazing thing because that news was only leaked, as far as I understand, after the incident.
Remember, this kid's social media is nowhere to be found.
Yeah, well, bull crap on that.
It would have suddenly shown up. It would have shown up as some sort of weird Iran connection.
Well, but it's true that, as you mentioned,
not as a liberal, but he was secretly an Iran connection.
Well, they don't disclose the Iranian threat until after. Right. Had it happened, had there been bombs or explosions, then you'd say, well, it could have been a terrorist attack or something. Yes. Well, an Iranian terrorist attack. I think that was the original plan. The original plan is kill Trump, take him out before the convention, before he can be on the ticket, before the states are legally bound to put him on the ballot, before he's picked a vice president that will be his successor. Use some third-party culprit that can rally the flag around a neocon war whore to be in control of the Republican Party, to allow Biden to announce a war. Even despite all his disagreements with Trump, even he recognizes how horrendous this is. And in the name of Trump and America must now wage war against Iran. And he's going to have all the neocon Republicans on board. He'll have the neocon candidate on board. It's a rally around the flag October. It's October in July. It's an October surprise, but a July surprise. It seals the deal for him coming in August. All the talk would quiet down. All the protesters on the left would have to shut their mouths, or they would be considered pro-Iran and anti-American and subject to being criminally rounded up and put into whatever detention camps needed to be out there. Any dangerous MAGA people locked up on the same premises that they wanted revenge for the death of President Trump, divert all attention to Iran, and boom, everybody on the establishment wins. And poor Mitch McConnell has to sit there on the floor getting booed by all the other Republicans while he tries to speak, seeing J.D. Vance walk into cheers with Donald Trump right with him, because instead it was a populist counter coup where Trump publicly announces an alignment with Kennedy on vaccine issues, gets it leaked up through Kennedy, lets everybody know he's meeting with Kennedy, he rushes the convention. He says, hey, by the way, we're not voting on Thursday. We're voting on Monday morning and Monday afternoon. I want me in, and I want Vance in, and I want it done before I even show up. And then I'm going to show up and make a heroic entrance. And you could see from Tucker, Bongino, and Don Jr. talking today, this was a massive effort to make this the populist coup that it could be for the best of MAGA and Trump. And they are thrilled. They're excited. They're pumped. Yeah,
because
Don
they won.
Jr.'s.
They won big, and the establishment got crushed. Because whether you put it as spiritual, whether you put it as coincidental, whether you put it as something unique to Trump, all plans went out the door when Trump just turned his head a little bit.
And I'll say this. I told it to Don. I don't talk about private conversations, but I told Don, as a fringe benefit to all of this absolute insanity and the madness, I swear to you, there's going to be a 10% uptick in religiousness, spirituality in America, because we talk about
miracles. That's as close to a physical living miracle as you'll ever see in your life.
It is. It's such and say not a miracle. There, I forget that Corey is the man who died. He says it's tough to talk about a miracle when someone died. You can't prevent evil, but the consequences that were averted by that slight of change. We talked about it yesterday. It would have led to World War III. It would have been Franz Ferdinand
if John
2.0.
Kennedy decided would have put his head down at the right moment. The whole world might have changed in terms of what happened. The deep state got control that day, and they have kept control for all but Trump's term. A little bit of Nixon's term, they were threatened. A little bit of Jimmy Carter's term, they were threatened. A little bit of Ronald Reagan's term, they were threatened. But this is now, they're in real risk. Now what do? I mean, blaming Iran's not going to get
Well,
anywhere.
then what do they do? That's the serious question now. It seems they've abandoned campaigning, basically. They've abandoned trying to replace Biden. I still, in my darkest of tinfoil hats, fear that Biden is absolutely useless now, that they'll do something that will make him useful because he can only serve a political
Well, maybe
use.
they just flip the script and say, let's still blame Iran, but take out Biden and Harris. Now, the problem is, I think if they took out both Biden and Harris at the same time, then doesn't Mike Johnson become president? Which would be fine with the deep state.
He's the speaker, right?
But Speaker of the House.
That's what I
But
understood.
Democrats, institutional Democrats, that's not acceptable. You can't give up control. So you could leave Kamala Harris in, but then she's at the top of the ticket. That's a disaster. That's not going to work anywhere. So I don't know if they have an option beyond trying to double down on Joe Biden and praying he can make a comeback in the elections. And the problem now is if Trump continues on this path on medical freedom, he mentioned food freedom yesterday with J.D. Vance. He says J.D. Vance is fighting for farmers, and it was even referenced in Pennsylvania. Well, there is only one big farmer in Pennsylvania to that case about it. It's the Amos Miller case. And J.D. had told me personally that he was investigating and doing everything he could to help out in that case. So if Trump embraces all the populist side of the Kennedy voter support, all Kennedy will do is take away from Biden. And then Biden has zero chance, literally zero chance. Because let's say Kennedy gets 5-6% in these states, 80-90% of that vote is vote that would have otherwise gone to Biden. He's dead. He has no chance.
I think it's a done deal now, and I forget who. I don't know who said it, but every Trump supporter just became a Trump voter.
Yeah.
And it's a spiritual. I'm not trying to sound cliched. It's a spiritual moment that we're all living through right now.
It absolutely is. It absolutely. And it was, turns out God's a populist. It's that simple.
No, so someone in the chat, Robert, asked in the call, on the leaked phone, Trump mentioned AR-15s. He called it a big gun. Trump needs to learn about guns. Look, it was an interesting. Why did he says? I think he said it's a big gun, to make himself, as a little self-aggrandize, like he needs it. But
I took it as a little bit different reference. In other words, I took it as he's suggesting he's talking to Kennedy, whose father was killed by an assassin working with the government in secret, whose uncle, President John Kennedy, was assassinated by the government in secret. So think about that. That's context number one. Who is he talking to in this conversation? And two, before he mentions the bullet, he mentions Joe Biden being the one asking him why he turned his head at the right moment, right? And then you look at in the third point, he goes, man, it's a big gun. He says a real powerful gun. It's AR-15 gun. I think the combination of what he's saying is he suspects it was an inside job and not this kid that was doing it.
Interesting.
And because of who he's talking to. And he gets to play non-responsibility because, what, a leaked conversation? Somebody, what? So it's a perfect way for him to get out that. And remember, this is the guy. I was talking to someone earlier about this, and they're like, what? They didn't even know about it. Do you remember the John Barron story?
Yes, but remind me and the audience.
So John Barron was the official spokesperson for Donald Trump many years back in the day. And ultimately, there was a person who had some of the old recordings and went on the Megyn Kelly show about different things claimed by John Barron as the spokesperson for Donald Trump. And the John Barron would say these really interesting things in the sense you say, man, you don't understand. Trump, these women want to leave Brad Pitt for Donald. He has to deal with Madonna's always calling him up. This kind of stuff, right? They start to listen to the conversation, and it becomes clear it's Donald Trump pretending to be John Barron promoting Donald Trump. Remember his son is named Barron, which came about later. So Trump is a master at getting information out in a way that more authenticates the message without being responsible, if you will, for that message. So I think the reason why he leaked, is it a coincidence that 2 days after there's an attempted assassination, he's leaking that he's on a phone and he has a personal conversation with Robert Kennedy for multiple hours? So much so that people thought Robert Kennedy might be the VP choice and skyrocketed in the betting markets. And then right after that, he picks J.D. Vance. And then he makes sure that gets appointed immediately Monday morning, not Thursday afternoon when they're normally they vote for the president. Monday afternoon. He understood exactly what was going on. When he stood up and said, fight, 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 he's like, I'm going to fight back in a smart populist way. And this is why they wanted to kill me, so I'm going to pay them back exactly the way they need to be paid back. And now I don't think they've ever lost like this, not in modern American history.
It was a series of white pills yesterday. The case coming from Eileen Cannon being tossed in Florida.
Yes.
Someone in the chat said the big gun was sort of like an alliteration. It meant the big guy, and it was a pointing a finger at Biden. But it is wild what has happened since that bullet missed, and it seems everything has happened. I don't even know where to take it from there. The Eileen Cannon, she tossed the she tossed the case, adjudicating that Jack Smith was unlawfully appointed,
completely unlawfully appointed,
as Thomas,
which indicts everything that he's done at every level. It means the DC case should be thrown out, unless the corrupt judge pretends somehow her ruling is not correct.
Well, she'll wait until the Court of Appeals adjudicates on this. Someone asked me this yesterday on Tim Cass, and I didn't know the answer. Which judge adjudicates for the district in which Eileen has this case? Judge Cannon.
So that goes up to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals.
So who is it? Clarence Thomas that has the oversight over the 11th Circuit?
He is the circuit judge for the 11th Circuit.
Okay, so that confirms. So Clarence Thomas, who laid out the groundwork for Eileen Cannon to dismiss Jack Smith, Clarence Thomas oversees the appeals of the 11th Circuit, which is where that decision will come from.
Right.
Okay. Ingenious.
I think that case is dead. Yep. It's not coming back. It's
and then
done.
Chutkan has to follow suit.
Well, she can ignore it, but then she's created a conflict that then should be resolved by the appeals court, meaning, again, there's going to be no trial before Election Day.
D.C. is in the same circuit as...
That's the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, which is terrible, but has already been overturned twice on January 6th in Trump-related charges.
There's a separate circuit for D.C. On its own.
That's why we need to get rid of the D.C. District Court, get rid of the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, get rid of the D.C. state court system. There needs to be no court system in the District of Columbia. It was never intended to have its own court system. It's not a state. It shouldn't even have electoral votes. Fold D.C. into Virginia or Maryland or whatever state you want to do, but it should not have. You have the swamp getting to guard the swamp.
Well, but just from a sheer volume of cases, each district has more than one state, and yet the District of D.C. has one district, D.C.
Because the Congress manipulates things so that a bunch of cases filed against the federal government can only be filed in the District of Columbia.
The question that we had, let's just say, so Chutkan will not dismiss it, or might, we'll see. The other cases, so what is going to happen now?
In the Georgia case today, they scheduled oral argument. They're going to hear oral
the Fannie
argument.
Willis, the appeal of the non-disqualification.
And I think all the momentum has shifted, right? I mean, you saw people that have been keeping their mouth shut about Trump.
Elon Musk being had he pledged the $45 million a month when we did our show Sunday? I think it was yesterday, right?
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, before this, he said he wasn't going to endorse anybody. He'd been kind of skeptical and critical of Trump. There's a bunch of people in Silicon Valley until recently had kept their mouth shut that secretly backed Trump but wouldn't publicly back Trump. Celebrities that wouldn't back Trump. Rappers and music stars in Hollywood that wouldn't back Trump. And as soon as they saw this, you saw this reaction rush to support Trump. That it was a patriotic moment to support Trump. I was telling somebody, I forgot to mention this on Sunday. I was going to analogize and compare I always wondered what it would be like to be my great-great-great-grandfather, the one that was who supposedly said, Colonel Prescott, who said at Bunker Hill, "Wait, boys, until you see the whites of their eyes." And I was like, what would it be like to be in the middle of that moment, right, where you have these troops coming on, where the heart of the revolution is going to live or die on that hill at that point in time, but you're facing real bullets. And to hear that, this was how this one colonel responded that helped rally the troops, that rallied the community. That even though they didn't win that day, they set it up to win in the future by his bravery. And the closest analogy I could see to that is when Trump, right after almost being summarily executed live on stage, stands up and says, "Fight, fight, fight." He answers that by meeting with Robert Kennedy. He answers that by accelerating the timeline of his nomination. And he answers that by putting J.D. Vance as his vice president.
There's been a shift in the zeitgeist.
Yes.
I feel it.
And now you see Elon Musk has endorsed him, and he's going to put $50 million a month. He's putting $45 million a month in it.
Unapologetically.
He liked your tweet.
He laughed at my tweet where they accuse Elon Musk of being an oligarch.
Billionaires spending money for politics is terrible.
Have you heard of
the Democratic Party that is entirely funded by corrupt billionaires?
And now it's not to say the only thought I had in saying, "Have you ever heard of George Soros, you dumbasses?" is I don't want to equate Musk with George Soros.
No.
But if you're complaining about people pouring money in, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Complain about Bill Gates, one of the most corrupt people in the world. Zuckerberg. I mean, who helped steal the election. And that Epstein Island guy. What's his name again? Hoffman or whatever it is. Remember, he was connected to the fake bots that illegally influenced the Senate election in Alabama.
Chat, let me know who the Epstein guy is. Well,
I think it's the LinkedIn founder, Reid Hoffman, I believe. And Musk is out there publicly exposing it. He's exposing all of it.
Well,
He endorses Donald Trump as soon as this happens. He calls for the firing of the Secret Service. He suggests there might be a conspiracy to assassinate him.
He's trolling them harder than anybody.
Completely.
He put the little
and he's
cheese
like,
on the lock.
I'm going to put $45 million a month. And then today, California decides they're going to pass more laws to take away your kids' rights, to allow the school system to indoctrinate your children without your knowledge, to get them to do a medical treatment that could irreversibly damage their future because their gender is confused without the parents even knowing this is even happening and occurring, just like they tried out as a test case and a template with the vaccines. People forget it wasn't just about the vaccines. It was about, can we not only force this on people against their will, can we force this on your kids without you even knowing it happened? There's a suit brought by Children's Health Defense against the McDonald's house in the District of Columbia because the McDonald's group was going around with their little mobile health clinics and the doctors were secretly vaccinating the children against the parents' even knowledge or consent.
That should be, I don't advocate for violence and there's no but for that. That would be something sufficient to trigger a very, very strong reaction from a parent.
Completely. And now California passes a law today that says basically the school system can keep you in the dark and give more power to the state against the interest of your children. And the reaction of Elon Musk is to say, I'm completely done with California. Where every business I have is out. We're done. We're finished. And then you see Bill Ackman, a famous billionaire, usually activist in terms of how he uses his money, come out and say he's going to back Donald Trump. You have all these people start to rush in to say so. You have celebrities talking about it. You got the woman who spoke at the convention the other day, and some people on the right were upset. I was like, you have a leftist getting up saying she's backing Donald Trump. I'd stick her up on the Republican
hold on.
National
Johnny Depp, his girlfriend, her name was?
April Rose or something?
No. Amber Heard. Now, Amber Rose is the woman's name. That's how
Amber
I get
Rose.
it. So the woman who spoke.
That's how you remember it.
Because I keep saying Amber
the
Rose,
first
Amber
name
Heard.
is Johnny Depp's crazy ex. And
So
then
I go, Johnny Depp's crazy ex, Amber Heard, Amber Rose.
With a
she
flower.
spoke yesterday, and look, I appreciate. Matt Wallace was taking the piss out of her a little bit today, and I think it's useless infighting because there is no. If you want to apply that litmus test to what it means to be a conservative, congrats. You're no different than a capital D Democrat.
It's sort of the religious, cultural conservatives who sometimes forget we got to build winning coalitions, right? The majority of the country ain't evangelical, right? I mean, we may wish they were, but they ain't. And so to me, it's fantastic. When I'm going through social media and I'm seeing all these libertarian-minded voices, I see 50 Cent, the day after the assassination, take the meme that substituted Trump's face for his behind a glass of all the different shots that, and he boasts, he puts it on his, go back to 2016, 2017, Eminem, what's his name? Snoop Dogg. Everybody's doing videos attacking Trump. Now, 50 Cent is putting a meme on Trump live in his concert, knowing it's going to be popular with that audience.
It is amazing. If you just take the hip hop shift from making videos about killing Trump to now these guys making videos and making songs for Trump. Tom McDonald brought one out the other day, but he's sort of been there for a long time. Now I forgot my thought. Hold on. It had to do with the rap.
50 Cent doing his show. With the Trump meme, the various music people coming in, the big tech and Silicon Valley moguls coming in, effectively at least some level of alliance between Robert Kennedy and Trump, J.D. Vance, the great populist alignment with Trump. They had all their plans. Clearly, their first set of plans was take Trump out by intimidation, right? Say, hey, do you want to be bankrupt? Do you want to go to prison for life? That didn't work. And then they're like, well, let's actually go through with it. Let's have the lawfare take away all his money and take away his ability to fund his campaign and put him in prison for life. And it didn't matter. And when the trials happened, everybody's like, these trials are a joke. They all know they're crock. This is bad theater. This is Stasi movie time, Stasi show trial movie time, and nobody's buying and nobody's purchasing. And it had no impact on Trump. Trump was refused to be intimidated. So then we had wondered what's the next step.
No, we do.
We knew it wasn't assassination. I started talking about it with Alex Jones because I was like, look, they assassinated within a decade They killed President Kennedy, killed Robert Kennedy, killed Martin Luther King, killed Malcolm X,
Robert,
and did a staged coup against Richard Nixon.
but take this year itself. Shinzo Abe, who else? They stabbed Bolsonaro.
The president in Slovakia taken
It's
out,
like-
or they tried to take him out with an
Yep.
assassination attempt. Whatever was going on with various people connected to the Iranian government officials. Now that makes even more sense, by the way. Think about that. Remember the high-ranking Iranian
Yep.
people that are taken out? And now it looks like the whole plan was to either induce Iran to attack Israel so that we could justify war with Iran, or their backup plan was, hey, because this is the Cuban thing all over again with Lee Harvey Oswald. It was, let's have the Iranians blamed for assassinating Donald Trump. We get killed two birds with one stone. The timing is the giveaway to me. As soon as it happened that Saturday, I was like, well, what's coming up? Oh, yeah. In 2 days, he's going to get nominated and legally bound on the ballot. In 2 days, as soon as it happened, I was like, because I was worried. And it would be understandable to me if Trump cut a deal. I mean, I wouldn't begrudge a man whose life is being threatened, his liberty is being threatened, his legacy is being threatened, his money is being threatened, his family is being threatened. The natural thing would be to cut a deal with these powerful people. And he basically said, screw you. And so they decided, well, we're going to kill you. We're going to put somebody else in the Republican Party and replace you. We're going to blame it on Iran. We're going to go to war with Iran. We're going to use that October surprise so that regardless of who wins, the deep state wins. And instead, he moves his head a quarter an inch. Whole ball game changes. Everything goes. Maybe that one counter sniper wasn't part of the script. He goes off and does his own thing and takes out the guy that is the guy they're trying to blame as a patsy. They can't try to keep shooting. They've got to give up and quit. They've got to cut off the rest of it. Trump recognizes what's going on, stands up and says, fight, 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 in one of the most iconic movements in pictures and images.
It's Iwo Jima. It's the most inspiring image imaginable.
Of American presidential politics, it's the most inspiring image in American history by a long mile.
I remember what I wanted to say is that Elon Musk is taking issue with the California law that allows kids to transition without even
it's
telling
part
their parents.
Of what put him on this red pill movement.
I wanted him to know like that had happened. Everyone should look at Canada and understand that Canada's 5 years ahead. In Quebec, when they amended the Youth Protection Act to eliminate parental supremacy as the overarching principle, I'm like, that's us getting out of here now, because when the government owns your kids, that's the end of it.
Correct.
In the chat, by the way, people are asking about, there were 2 incidents today. There was a shooting literally where I parked my car yesterday. I posted it. I took a picture. It was Valiente and 7th, and the shooting was at Valiente and 14th. That's where you had to come in through the perimeter. It was unrelated to, I don't know, 2 people involved in a knife fight, and one of them got shot by police. Then there was an incident of a guy apparently bringing in, they called it an AR-15 pistol. Now, I don't know what that means, because I always thought the AR-15 was a rifle. A guy wearing a face mask, suspicious, carrying a bag that had an AR-15 in it, arrested outside the other perimeter. So, yeah, a couple of incidents. But when you've summoned the demons and you've given them a political permission slip for the last 8 years, expect them to show up. But the security is very good, very tight, and I think there might be more police officers here than people. There aren't, but
And I think it's because everything went sideways. Like, I think they had one plan. That plan, they didn't know how to counter it. And to Trump's credit, it's the quickest action I think I've ever seen him take. He understood what the score was. He knew exactly how to counter it, and he countered it brilliantly, and he countered it so quickly, they don't know what to do. I mean, Karl Rove was shaking with rage at the fact that J.D. Vance was the VP choice.
Explain that, because they talked about, I've heard everybody talk about it, people who I trust. The only people angry at J.D. Vance being nominated or appointed as VP are the scum of the earth, in every sense of the word. So what threat? I understand the threat in terms of he's young, he's a populist, he's for, not really for big pharma, not really for big industry. Is that why they're freaking out?
Well, yeah, some of the smartest intellectuals on the populist side, on the administrative state side, on the anti-war side, on the anti-empire side, for example, very quickly, Rand Paul said fantastic choice. I can tell you behind the scenes, Rand Paul was lobbying for J.D. Vance. Thomas Massie was lobbying for J.D. Vance. Thomas Massie quickly comes out, says awesome choice. Tucker Carlson says awesome choice. Don Trump Jr. says awesome choice. Dan Bongino says awesome choice. And what does Tucker say? All the people that are the worst, scummiest people in all of Washington hate J.D. Vance, which is as good an endorsement as possible. Mitt Romney came out and described him as despicable. Joe Biden came out and described him as a Trump lookalike on ideas and issues. Those are all endorsements, right? And the deep state didn't know what to do. I was behind Fox with Karl Rove up there. Just you could see him shaking with rage.
But
it was delicious. It was like when Cartman comes up and he gets to drink the tears of of his enemy and his adversary. That's how beautiful that was.
Did they really? Were they really that taken aback or taken by surprise?
Completely.
That's mine.
Trump had successfully misled all of them into thinking it was guaranteed to be Marco Rubio or Tim Scott.
Oh, okay.
And maybe Doug Burgum, because Burgum is beloved by Bill Gates and a lot of billionaires. And so a lot of that side of the billionaire island. They thought because they had effectively, for 4 years while he was president, pushed him around a lot. And he was only so at being able to push back because he was maneuvering in a completely foreign atmosphere. But he really understood what that shooting was about. When he stood up and said, fight, 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 that meant the worm had, in the great line of the movie Wolf, the worm has turned and is carrying an effing Uzi. And that's what Jack Nicholson's character says at a key time, wakes up fully. You saw Trump wake up fully at that precise moment. He knew what they just tried to do, and he was going to go. That moment, that failure by the deep state is going to go down as maybe the death knell of the deep state. We'll find out. But it is, for those people opposed to that corrupt system of governance, yesterday was one of the greatest achievements and on the path to success that I've witnessed in my living lifetime in the United States.
Let me ask the crew, can we keep going, guys? You don't mind? Okay, awesome. Now, let me read a few of the chats. I'll try to get to the ones in our locals community. The first one on Rumble, however, because I want to read it. Everything was perfectly laid out for Trump to die. It was an absolutely foolproof plan. The only thing the deep state didn't count on was Trump turning his head and causing the shooter to miss. We averted disaster in the most meaningful and incontrovertible way imaginable. Doc No says, God didn't say to love only the neighbor that you agree with or that agrees with you. Let me go down here. He told us to love our neighbors. Oh, for goodness sake. Now I just scrolled out of here. I'll get it in a second, Robert. What now? So what happens for the rest of this RNC?
I'm really curious. So I think you're going to see. So a neocon Nikki is up, and I think she's getting. Somebody in the chat said she's getting booed more than the fat stripper.
Wait, who is the fat stripper?
I think they maybe mean the colloquial phrase of the.
Okay.
I have no idea, but I thought it was funny. So tomorrow night will be J.D. Vance accepting the vice presidential nomination. We'll be on with Tim Pool.
Yes, we will, and Riley Gaines. It's going to be an amazing show.
Correct. Thursday night will be Trump's acceptance speech. The story is that he has a whole unity speech and he's re-scripted it for those purposes. You see J.D. Vance isn't going anywhere, though he's explaining to everybody what a black job was at the NAACP. So he said, a black job? That's VP. I know what a black job is. I was like, I don't know if that sounds exactly like you think it does. You people are good enough for second, but you're not good enough for first. Let's not be too serious. Good old JD, good old Joe Biden. So, but I think J.D. Vance will give a fantastic speech tomorrow. He really articulates the populist cause well. I think it will be a populist rally to arms. I think Trump will do a great unity speach and while at the same time hitting home his populist messages.
It's going to be the best speech, I think, in the history of American politics.
We'll see. I think it'll be a top-notch speech. And then the question becomes, what is the Biden's clearly not going anywhere. Their whole plans are now skewered and gone sideways. What do they do? And I think they have all kinds. You see what Democrats in California are doing. They're doing the same thing, even though they're going to lose more business, lose more billionaires, lose more money, lose more tax base. They're just going to keep going. You've seen a rallying to Trump that they couldn't have anticipated. They had to get, So I don't think if anybody has studied sort of deep state operatives under the post-Cold War generation, what you have seen is people who do not have a plan B. They didn't have a plan B. Oh, what happens if Russia's economy doesn't collapse? What happens if our sanctions are shown to be weak and actually not really have much teeth in them? What happens if the Russian populace doesn't rebel against Vladimir Putin? What happens if the Ukrainians can't win on the military battlefield? What happens if the Russian army is actually just fine? What happens if China unites with Russia rather than further divides between they and Russia? They're like, they didn't have a plan. What happens if we go into Afghanistan, like every other empire that's ever gone into Afghanistan, lose?
Leave in the dead of the night and leave the military there. Someone in the chat said, why was Nikki Haley even there? Probably to accept the nomination for the president.
That's exactly presidential candidate. When I saw Mitch McConnell there, and I saw Larry Hogan there, and I saw all these other schmucks on the floor there, people they hate Donald Trump to the bottom of the boat. I was like, they were only here, and they know that they're not liked at this convention. They were only here to replace Trump. And they were as shocked as everybody. I mean, it's the first time a deep state plot hasn't worked to plan to a certain degree in the U.S. domestic politics for a little while. Because the internationally, it's been a disaster in Afghanistan. It's been a disaster in Syria. It's been a disaster in Libya. It's been a disaster in Iraq. It's been a disaster in terms of handling everything related to Gaza. It's been a disaster in Ukraine. It's been a disaster with Russia. It's been a disaster in Central America. And they try to take him out. And that Central American, president is one of the most popular and populist in the country. They try to push back against Milei, and Milei gets in with ease in Argentina. So, it's just been disaster after disaster after disaster for the Western deep state. And they thought Russiagate would take Trump out the first time. It didn't. They thought Mueller would be able to take him out. That didn't work. They thought impeachment 1 would take him out. It
is
didn't. When you thought impeachment 2 would take him out. It didn't.
When you go through the list of what they've done, it's mind-blowing, mind-boggling. People in the chat are saying, they'll rig the elections, but like Bongino, Tucker, and Don Jr. were saying, if they rig the elections and it's clear, no one will ever have faith in democracy. Not that they do now, but it'll just be clear.
Yeah,
everybody understands.
That was a very interesting pick from Tucker. Like Tucker's point was to be outside the margin of fraud is to be outside the public credibility of the fraudulent person being elected. He was like, in 2020, that could work because the people could believe that people chose Biden over Trump a second time around. He's saying no one's going to believe that Biden was elected this time. And he's saying that's their biggest problem, that the court of public opinion won't buy a fraudulent election, and that the entire system will collapse from lack of credibility because credibility is critical to the institution's survivability. So, the first time around, it didn't work with Republicans or Trump supporters, but it worked with enough in-between voters for them to accept Biden get elected. This time he's like, it won't. And then all those people talking about fraudulent elections for the last 4 years, everybody like, I wonder if they're right about 2022. And so that's the problem they have.
Someone says they're too big to rig, and it's a pretty good, what's the word when alliteration. Big 093610 in local says, did you see Tucker's tweet calling Lindsey Graham a liar sucking up to JD?
That's because, it's also not a coincidence Tucker's here, right? After Trump
Tucker's
survives...
sitting right next to President Trump last time.
Yes.
It's wild.
And who made that decision, right? And then Byron Donalds, the other one. So Trump decides, I'm going to have the most populist people in our party sitting next to me right after you attempted to assassinate me. And then I'm going to leak a phone call with the most populist independent candidate, right? He sent a message to the establishment. You missed, screw you, now it's payback time. That's what all of what happened on Monday was. And now I don't know if they know what to do. Nikki Haley tonight, she's up there talking. She was thinking, I'm supposed to be nominated.
Oh, she's talking now. I want to know if they're booing her. I can see her through the reflection.
Yeah, from the live chat, they said she was being booed right away.
Yeah, she deserves it. I would have liked to have been in there for that, but I wouldn't make myself part of the story. But I would be thinking boos in my head. Mako320 says, look up Denver's local coverage, KOA 850. Mandy Connell, Viva, she's from Florida, loves to fish. Well, then.
Well, you notice, by the way, Trump's been cheering everybody. Except Neil, everybody would be clapping around him, and he's not clapping for Neocon Nikki. He's telling people,
Actually, now I'm looking at it, the crowd seems awful quiet for her.
Yes.
Here we got another one. Judy Hodgkin says, your theory that excuses RFK's behavior has a flaw. Trump's people are never going to trust RFK after this unless Trump really did authorize the leak and eventually makes that public. I would disagree with that. If RFK gets in there and really goes after Pfizer, really goes after vaccines, or at least to try to expose
I don't think Trump cares about a leak one way or the other.
No, the supporters think that RFK is a snake in the grass. Trump supporters, I think they'd get over that very quickly with action.
And none of that will matter. What matters for Trump is getting people who are thinking about voting for Kennedy. That's what Trump wants. And then the second thing Trump wants is a message to the deep state establishment that if they're going to, there's payback time. And if you were thinking about paying back the deep state, you pick J.D. Vance to be your VP. You leak that you're going to put Kennedy in a position to supervise vaccine investigations. Those would be two of the first. You unite even further and more publicly with Tucker Carlson, the most populist voice in public opinion that exists. And he did all three, and he did it within 6 hours. You couldn't have. There was a reason Tucker, Bongino, and Don Jr. are here tonight. This was they talked about it briefly. That was a celebration that they had won. This was a backroom battle for the conscience of the Republican Party, for the future of conservative populism, for independent causes, to take on the administrative state, take on the deep state. Remember, it's not a coincidence. They locked up Steve Bannon when they did this. They had locked up Peter Navarro. Some of the most important populist voices in the country were literally in prison.
It is. Now that you mention it, for the voices that were lost with the locking up of Bannon, it goes back to a foil plan.
He wasn't going to be around right after they assassinated the president. Peter Navarro was not going to be around right after they assassinated the president. And Tucker Carlson would have been effectively sidelined by all of this. And instead, Trump's putting Tucker Carlson right there. So Trump knows what he's doing, and he has shown he understands what the score is. Because this has been the best populist coup for American politics, or freedom coup, liberty coup, anti-administrative state, anti-deep state coup politically that has happened in modern American history. I mean, it's extraordinary. And it's Trump who orchestrated it, Trump who organized it. And Trump doesn't care whether Kennedy leaked something or didn't, even whether he approved it or didn't. What he cares about is getting a message to the deep state. What he cares about is wrapping up the votes on the Trump side of the equation that could otherwise go to Kennedy. And he talked about the exact right issues for that purpose. And it's not a coincidence. He's letting everybody know, who am I talking to when I'm talking about the attempted assassination on me? I'm talking to the son who has prominently accused the deep state of killing his father and his uncle. So that's not a coincidence, right? Trump didn't have to have that conversation, and the fact that part of the conversation is what's leaked.
Yeah, well, that was.
When I put that together, I was like, okay, John Barron is the source of this leak.
It was 1 minute and 50 seconds, and it was abruptly cut off
for
no better reason.
Good for Trump and good for Trump, and it set so many seconds. Remember, Trump loves visual images. He's a visual image of talking to Robert Kennedy. That kind of looks like Robert Kennedy, the senior, talking to President Kennedy. And what is he talking about? The attempted assassination of him. Right? I mean, there's nobody who looks at that has any background understanding and doesn't think this is Trump communicating that they tried to take him out and they failed. I mean, that's how I took it.
Dapper Dave in Rumble says, can you mention at convention to all the Republican podcasters whenever they encounter a leftist that mentions January 6th insurrection to just ask how many people were actually charged with insurrection? There's no rationalizing reasoning with any of the so-called counter-protesters lefties. So there's no point having a reasonable discussion with an unreasonable person. Dr. No, which is one I was trying to read earlier, says, God didn't say to love only the neighbors that you agree with. He told us to love our neighbors, period. Judgment is his. Remember, Matt Walsh, best remember the warning to false prophets who lead people away from God. And then Matt_Hammond says, Robbie Starbuck got another win. John Deere rolled back their DEI policies and supporting Pride events. So a series of white pills, Robert.
Completely. And like someone asked in the live chat, if Trump knows that this was a coordinated effort. We briefly discussed it with Don Jr. But remember what Trump's reaction to this. One is he's letting people know indirectly that he understands the score by having that conversation, or it benefits him, put it this way, that conversation with Robert Kennedy Jr. leaks because Robert Kennedy Jr. is the most prominent critic of assassinations of politicians in American politics alive today. But the other part is, remember what Trump said in the debate. He said, to me, the best success, the best revenge is success. So he understood, well, what does he do? He stands up and says, fight, fight, fight. That isn't, hey, okay, I'm going to try to figure out an investigation and expose who tried to kill me. He understands who tried to kill him. And he goes, what's the best revenge? Success. So what is it they don't want me to do? What is it they don't want? They don't want populist Trump to be present. They don't want Robert Kennedy in control of vaccines or someone similarly minded or inclined. They don't want J.D. Vance to be the vice president. They don't want that populism to be put front and center. And so what does he do? He puts that populism front and center. So his revenge will be success. He doesn't care about getting individual revenge to a great degree. He only agrees to the necessity to deter it to reoccurrence. But generally, he's very generous on that side of the aisle. Where Trump is really good is recognizing that success is always the best revenge.
With that said, I think we won't stay too long. I think we're the last podcast of the evening, so we're back live tomorrow. Who knows what time we're at? Is it 2 o'clock Eastern?
I thought it was 1 o'clock Central and 2 o'clock Eastern.
While we confirm for tomorrow, Robert, we're going to hang for a little bit. I might go back and see the family who's been very patient. We went to the Milwaukee Zoo this morning. It was about a 5 on 10. I think I might have outgrown
everybody here in town. The art museum is cool. The East Side is cool. Some of the breweries are really cool. There's a lot of brewery history here in Milwaukee. The lake is nice. Those are nice things to do.
Yeah, the zoo. The animals looked a little unhappy. The
Find
aquarium was
nice.
nice.
Get some great Wisconsin. Oh, you got to eat. Have you tried cheese curds yet?
Well, we have cheese curds up in Quebec, but I've had. Yeah, we go. Our cheese curds are like bouncy, squishy ones. The cheese here is amazing.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful city. Everybody who's been following our walkabouts knows that. Did you say 2 o'clock
great architecture.
Eastern? 2 o'clock Central.
2
So
o'clock
it's-
Central.
What time is that? That is
3
3
Eastern.
o'clock Eastern. That's good.
Yeah, well, that's good by me.
And everybody, it's been the White Pill Monday, followed by a White Pill Tuesday. There's been a shift in the zeitgeist. We felt it. It was an earthquake of spiritual proportions.
Absolutely. Great. If you care about freedom, liberty, or populism, it was one of the best achievements in the history of American politics.
The slight turn of a head will change the course of history for the better. Everybody out there, Robert, are you going to do a Bourbon with Barnes tonight?
No, I may be on with Nick Ricada at midnight. Central.
No way. Well, I forgot to plug vivabarneslaw.locals.com, where we have a wonderful group of community watching this.
I
was
gotta catch a
told.
dinner with some folks, and if I get time, I'll hop on because Nick's covering some of the convention.
Okay, well, I was told that I have to go back and watch your Bourbon with Barnes from yesterday because
That
you
was
were
great.
on
That was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was a night owl version of Bourbon with Barnes.
Amazing.
So yes, absolutely.
Everybody, tomorrow, 2 o'clock Eastern. So we'll see y'all then, and we're going to go enjoy the town.
Exactly.
Peace out, peeps.